This game is like a video game of life, and you gotta know the rules. You gotta understand how to pick your battles in this game of life. If you don't learn how to pick your battles, you're gonna fight every battle. You're gonna feel like you're losing in this game. But once you feel like you have the choice and the self-responsibility to decide that I'm gonna move forward, something magical starts to happen. The universe starts to work in accordance with your laws. And oftentimes we get trapped, in this simulation of life. We get so confused, we get so scattered, we're not even sure what's real and what's artificial anymore. So it's really, really important that you create this flow state channel for yourself. And that is between anxiety and boredom. Understand that boredom is your self-centeredness. You're saying, I'm bored, as if there's nothing to do and there's no one else to interact with. And it's just zooming in to your self-centered experience. Whereas anxiety is self-consciousness. Oh, is there something wrong with me, right? Should I be more like this, or should I have it in this way? Or, oh, but what if I can't do it in the future? And these kinds of, overwhelming, overthinking types of thoughts that come in. Now, in between those is a selflessness where you actually lose your concept of the self because you're just so in it. You're so in the moment, you're so in the zone that you just forget about all of the other extraneous factors that life starts giving you. And that's when you start winning this game. That's what 99% of people on this planet aren't doing, is they aren't matching up the challenges of the game with the skills of the game. They're doing something completely different. Okay? So once you start to take the power back into your own hands and you start to decide that, okay, I know exactly what I'm here to do on this planet, and you make that decision, you make that conscious choice, or you make that conscious decision, it's really going to start to help you and shape you in the way that you most accurately need at that time. Okay? So a lot of people ask me this question about, who makes a better performer? Someone who's very mechanical and scientific, or someone who's way more spiritual and, let's just call it esoteric, right? I think it's a blend of both. I don't think that we can classify these two as two separate beings and treat them so separately like that. I think there's a process of multidimensionality which we have to get to, because in the flow state, you're not worried about what color skin you have or what race you are, or what your job occupation is, or all these different things. You just know that you have a self. That self is the player in this video game of life. In order to level up, you got to tap in. That's all I know, and that's all I'm sharing with you, okay? You got to find things that excite you about life and make you feel like this life is meaningful and worthy and bringing me joy. And going through the discomfort will be much more enjoyable if you treat life like a game. If you treat this thing like a video game, you'll start to notice where your level ups are, what the cheat codes and walkthroughs in this game is. And you can only figure that out through living it, through direct experience, okay? You can read about the game and what other people have experienced from living the game, but that's only gonna give you some of the blueprints and frameworks, right? But it's until you come up with your own framework where you're like, oh, this is actually gonna work for me. This is actually gonna help me out, This is actually gonna make me excel in this particular area of my life. And you see right now, I just kind of fixed my hair. I was still in my self-consciousness, but I was allowing myself to, I guess, not resist that and go into that and fix it as I'm talking on the camera. So we do this oftentimes, right? Like, let's say you're going to the sauna. If you're going to the sauna, or if you're doing a cold plunge, or if you're doing, going to an ecstatic dance convention, or if you're doing anything to tap into the zone, right, for that matter, a breathwork ceremony or whatever you're doing, right? Those are intentional. You chose those activities to level you up, and therefore you expect it once it's there, so you have the sense of control over that activity as opposed to something random, right? Like, what if you felt like a cold plunge out of the blue? You'd be like, whoa, I'm shivering, I'm so cold. And it would shock you, it would overwhelm you and throw you off your course. Or let's say it's damn hot, right? And you're like, wow, this is like the sauna, how hot it is. But in the sauna, you aren't that perturbed, okay? You aren't as perturbed as you would be if you suddenly felt this intense, deadly heat, right? Just kind of pop up at you out of nowhere like a surprise. So knowing that our intentionality, our consciousness is the way that we direct this game, this video game forward, okay? With your intentions, you are now shaping the landscape and the maps are coming alive, in a sense. Whereas another time you could be playing the game very robotically, like you're an autopilot, right? Kind of just like going through the motions, rather than actually enjoying the game, sitting with the game, and learning all the game can give you, right? All the balance it can give you, all the harmony that it can help you to access through just being there. So Alan Watts said, you know, you're cold. If you're in the cold and you're resisting the cold, it's not going to be a very enjoyable experience, right? Because you're resisting the present moment. You're resisting what is. And this is what 99% of the planet are doing right now. They're not Flomo sapiens. They haven't tapped into their unique gifts or their, you know, their unique code, their flow code of their life. But they're just kind of going through the motions of life. Whatever happens to life, they're just reacting to life. And they're being an effect rather than being the cause. And you can't just have this mentality of going with the flow, man. You have to be the flow, embody the flow, and start to live a lifestyle that gives you a flow state lifestyle. What do I mean by that? Your state of consciousness changes as a result of you living more free. And the way that the world is changing right now, the monetization systems are going to change, banks are going to change, the schooling systems are going to change, because, you know, everyone's looking online on ways to make money and you know, hack their way out of the matrix. Like there's so much about that going on right now, okay? And that is if you haven't stepped into some weird rabbit hole like crypto or NFTs or, you know, those are valid too. I think in the future we're going to start to understand them more, but it's just so much, you know, preoccupation with the nonsense that sometimes happens, like with Logan Paul and the crypto zoo thing, that's the debacle that's happening right now, you know? So in the sense, we understand that your ability to speak your truth, to be a man or woman of their word, to go out there and make things happen is very, very much so possible. You just have to build the rules of the game for you, and also have it, of course, benefit your tribe, benefit your people, the other players in the game that are playing alongside you, okay? A lot of people, they try to win, but there's no winning in this game. This is an infinity game, in a sense, okay? If you ever read the book, The Art of Impossible, you'll start to understand there's certain games that can't be measured like that. Like life is one of them, right? The same thing with, let's say, you can't really measure something like love, right? For instance, it's just so boundless and infinite that you would just be doing a disservice if you were just say, oh yeah, just I love this thing, or I love this dog, or I love this person, or I love myself. You can't really rate something that ethereal, something that, you know, expansive. So in a sense, there's certain things that are infinity games. And these infinity games are not meant to be won, they're meant to be played. Okay, so you just happen to be a part of this simulation, this video game called life. And now, the more learning that you do on this journey, the more you're gonna get a grasp of this thing. The less learning that you're gonna be doing and distancing yourself from learning and trying to escape this game or escape the life. Let me press the eject button, let me press respawn, right? Which is what people are trying to do when they feel very suicidal, or they have a suicidal ideation. It's like, let me press the respawn button because I didn't choose this character and I don't like the way that this game is going right now. Okay, so you might be feeling like that, but start to understand, and that's a very dark psychology kind of understanding of this. But if you really truly understand that, hey, I'm the one with the joystick, I'm the one in control of this thing, and I can actually figure things out very slowly, right? And I have to gain trust with my own subconscious mind, because my subconscious mind, you know, it's at a processing speed, it's like 5,000 miles per hour, and the conscious mind is only like 150 or something, right? And so it's like, you really want to understand that being in flow will triple your productivity. Being in flow will triple or quadruple or intensify, like spike up your creativity and your mood and everything, you know? And so this is why I loved tapping into the state, because this is what the state that all the sages talk about, all the mystics talk about, that they're trying to attain nirvana or samadhi or enlightenment or whatever words you want to give it, right? It is that. This journey of flow state is that. And the people who, you know, classify it in two different ways, I would argue and say, no, actually, that is the way. You see, a monk who's meditating for a very long period of time in the Himalayas, compared to an adventure sports athlete, if you measure their brains, you will notice both are in a meditative state. Okay, you will notice the same brain chambers firing off in flow state regarding both of these unique one is a more passive experience, one is a more active experience, but they both have same brain regions, right, being active. Prefrontal cortex slowing down, right, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and there are aspects of the brain that are, you know, activating more. You know, it will make you feel that you are selfless. The flow state will make you feel that I don't have a self to begin with. I am just pure consciousness doing its thing. And you are mainly getting out of the way. You're becoming the channel for something divine to come through you and take over. Okay? That's a very woo-woo way of describing it, very esoteric, but that's really what's happening, is we're adding less rigidity to the mixture. We can add structure, but structure doesn't necessarily imply rigidity. Okay, structure implies order, and the mind seeks order. So if the mind has more certainty doing something else, or it has its core needs fulfilled, it's gonna probably go with that, and not with the old, you know, model or the old paradigm of what you're trying to create. So it's important to understand the mechanisms of the mind, the mechanisms of the body, the mechanisms of the spirit. And once you understand these three things all together, then they start to almost be like a ladder or a tree that feeds into each other. Like if you notice the trees, right, a lot of them are blending into the other trees, and you can't really tell like where it starts and where it begins. And that's what you got to understand. It's the same thing with your expressiveness, with your communication, with the impact that you're going to leave in this world. Is it's so enriching that it transcends, right? It goes away from the boundaries and the limits that you thought was possible. So you thought it was like this, but really the experience is like this. Why is it so many people that, like, you know, have all the greatest things in life, and they're famous and they're rich and they have all these superficial measures, maybe they're very attractive, why are they still lonely and unhappy and unfulfilled and going through depression, going through anxiety, all these different things, okay? There's clearly something missing. That missing piece for me was the zone, was the flow state, was that state of spirituality and connectedness, that I could feel connected and actually like I'm adding value to this world, right? I'm not just like a sheep normie just going about like doing my thing on my basal, you know, core responses, right? There is a part of me, that animal part of me, but I don't resist that part of me. I know it wants to yell and do things and move around and start to express itself, right, through this world. And once we understand the self beyond the superficial, beyond the surface level, beyond the shell, right? There's a beautiful meditation that my father brought us through in the last meditation practice, where he got us to visualize that our organs or everything internal to us, we were just our skin. and everything internal to us was just being washed away with light. And all the organs became lights, and all the little capillaries and blood vessels and, you know, little bones and muscles, everything just became light. And you were just this hollow vessel of light. And, you know, it's such a beautiful experience when I got to experience that, because all the discrepancies and weird like tics or pains that you get in old age, you guys will know, like some of you youngins will know, that your body starts to really twist and turn and crack in weird locations, and you start getting aches and pains as you get older. But if you stay flexible, if you stay like really trusting in that, you know, like, oh, let me just move my body around, like, let me not care. Because when you're in the zone, right, one of the benefits of being in the zone is you stop giving a fuck. You stop caring about what other people think of you and their opinions of you, because you're purely in control of your own consciousness now, and what you focus on what you can control, not on what you can't, right? And that level of stoicism, that level of understanding, if you can come from that state, you will understand what all the mystics, you know, the Sufis talked about in terms of, you know, the Sufis are very interesting how they have the dervish dancers, right? They spin around and around and around and around to create a trance-like state in order for you to access it. And, you know, some of you are only getting 2 hours of sleep, and you guys are like complaining about like, oh, I can't get any sleep, so I can't perform. But these people are trying to get themselves more drowsy, you see, because they understand the power that the subconscious mind has when it is in that sleepy state. So some of you are in the sleepy state and using it to your benefit. You're hacking your subconscious, you're giving yourself affirmations, you're self-hypnotizing in that state. But others, you're just kind of like, oh man, oh, time for my 7th caffeine shot, okay? Time for another energy drink, okay? Time for, you know, a 5-hour energy or whatever. Look, I prefer being out in nature, man. You know why? Because my chi and my prana is being activated from the sunlight. Whereas indoors, I feel very claustrophobic, very closed in. I'm not meant to be in a cubicle like that as I'm working out. I'm supposed to be out in the open, right? Doing my thing, like moving my body, stretching intensely in the sunlight. And now my chi, my prana might be hitting my skin. And, you know, I'm gonna start to practice, you know, taking my shirt off also in public, because I don't really do that much. But as I start getting more comfortable with that, I do want to work out in the sun, in the middle of nowhere, right? In nature, and just experience that. Who gives a fuck what people say or think? Okay, that's their reality they're projecting onto me. I'm in my zone. I'm going to allow myself to live a life accordance to my zone. And if you don't do that, if you know, second guess yourself, or you trust other people's opinions or religious institutions more than you and your own heart, right? Where your heart is your own guru, right? Your heart is that thing that beats fast only when it's trying to protect you and preserve you, right? It's trying to get you to like wake up, man. Life is trying to get you to wake up. So it's time you wake up. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell, all that good shit. Let's get it. Upward Spiral Gang. May we never be the same again. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Os.